100 years ago, my great-grandfather bought a junkyard in Indiana. And ever since then, my family has been bringing things back to life. When somebody else has given up on it, when nobody thinks it will run, I love it. It's in my family. It's in my blood. For 100 years, we've been firing them up. Welcome back to Fired Up Garage. Tonight we are doing some spindle bearing removal for some old Bronco spindles. I know a lot of people have problems pulling these out, so I'm going to show you a tool that I've got that works pretty good on them. So you can get them out. About 5 minutes each it takes to take these spindle bearing out, and then we'll get them replaced with some new bushings from Wild Horses. So tonight I'm taking the spindle bearings out of some old Bronco spindles off the 72. I pulled one of them out. I wasn't actually sure I was going to replace these, but then as soon as I pulled this one out, as you can see, we're missing some of them in there. So I looked up on Wild Horses, and they have some bushings, extreme spindle bushings, so that's what are going back in. So I'm going to show you first how to pull this one out, a way that I found that works, and then we'll go ahead and put the new bushings in. So a lot of people talking about what's the best way to pull these out. I just found that this old snap-on tool works pretty good. A lot of different ways to do it, but I'll show you how I do it with this one. So I've just got the whole spindle laying here face up on the bench, and this has a couple different adjustments in it. When you actually screw this in, when you screw this whole thing in, not this nut, but the actual threaded rod, when you screw that in, it will expand the jaws out. You can kind of see there. And then you can use the big nut on it to actually pull this just slides in here, so the thread on the rod's not actually doing anything for the distance. So you use the big nut to actually pull it out once you've got it all set up. So we'll get it set up in here. Just gonna loosen that back up a little bit so these will fit down in there. Alright, so we've got it all set up in here. Those jaws expanded out, and then as we keep turning it, now it's going to turn against this big nut, and that's going to pull the spindle bearing out in there. There's a seal right here. It's so caked in grease and stuff that you can't even tell, which I'm not worried about because I'll be replacing it, but you may want to put something in there to protect that seal if you're trying to save it, because the tool will actually press down into that. So let's go ahead and pull it out. They're pretty tight, so I use the big crescent wrench on it, and I have to put it in the vise usually part of the way through. These ones haven't been out in a long time. Go ahead. So we got it all set up here. I got the jaws out, and then I got the big crescent wrench on here, and so we're just going to tighten with this one. And as we do, you'll hear it kind of creaking. And a big part is making sure that you get the jaws expanded all the way out. If not, it's just going to drag across the bearing. But let me show you what it looks like as it's pulling it out. Find a good shot here. Okay, there we go. So you'll see it's just pulling the spindle bearing out.
you go, spindle bearing out. Here's our spindle. We're going to get that all cleaned up, and we've got some bushings to go in there. I think total time with this tool was probably about 5 minutes per spindle bearing. This is an old snap-on tool. They make some knockoff versions of it now and different brands and stuff like that, but the snap-on one works really good. The only thing is you got to make sure that you actually tighten it up to the point where you get those jaws expanded all the way so they're holding that bushing, the spindle bearing really good. I think a lot of people don't get them expanded all the way out, and then it drags back across the inside of the bearing. So tool works really well. It's an old snap-on tool, but there's a lot of different versions of this tool now that you can find. That one works great for taking the spindle bearings out.